I want to preface it with saying I would be disillusioned, I would be naive to think that I could address this topic today and come away with a changed perspective of everyone. I want to plant the seed. I want to start a conversation about Muslim women being oppressed. I've had this conversation many times. So please forgive me for my emotion. This is 36 years in the making. In the Quran, it says, "He it is who shapes you in the womb as he pleases. There is no God but he, the exalted in might, the wise." In the same verse, it talks about the womb or the uterus, from the triliteral root, raham, which is one of the names of God. The Arabic word for community is ummah, derived from the mother, because I am Nasiha, my oldest daughter here from Chicago. The term used in Islam to denote the worldwide community of the faithful. We can't have a community without mothers. To commune creates a state of intimate, heightened sensitivity, and respectively with unity. So there's no community without unity. In the Quran, in chapter 4, it says, "O mankind, reverence your guardian Lord, who have created you from a single person, created of like nature his mate, and from them twain scattered like seeds, countless men and women. Fear God, through whom you have demanded your mutual rights, and reverence the wombs that bore you, for God ever watches over you. Be aware of your merciful mother." So now I'm going to sit with Rosa. She's going to ask me the questions, and I'm going to answer it the best way I can.
That was very beautiful. Now, as we learned earlier, this Mother's Day tribute started pretty much in the United States. Nuran, are there any traditions in Islamic culture that honor mothers in a similar way?
Well, mothers are revered every day, or they're supposed to be. So in the Middle Eastern countries and in North African countries, they actually celebrate mothers on March 21st, Maysoons of Palestinian descent. And then in South Africa, where I'm from, there is a large Muslim community. We celebrate the same day they celebrate in the United States.
So it's a worldwide
Yes, ma'am.
holiday. In the 21st century, in Islamic culture, is the expectation that women should marry and become mothers?
So this is an interesting question because in Islam, marriage is preferred. However, it is not necessary, and one should not be forced to get married. Now, we know that in a lot of many countries that are highly populated by Muslims, women are forced to marry, and sometimes forced to marry some people that they have never met, never been acquainted with. This is prohibited in Islam.
I think you started to address this already, but what does the Quran say about women, mothers, and motherhood?
So the religion encourages family bonding, which sometimes can mean that you're supposed to get married. My husband doesn't like any shoulds, so I'm going to say supposed, because should comes with the judgment. And let him not judge me while I'm sitting here today. So the religion encourages family bonding. However, forcing marriage is prohibited. Parents can not force their children, and we're talking about arranged marriages, which is the strangest thing to me, but it still goes on today, even in the United States. That there are families that come from either, I want to say, countries that are highly populated by Muslims, and they set it up for their children to get married, and their kids actually do this. I can't understand that. But it's still happening in the US. Okay, I will. Thank you. I'm so sorry. Did anybody not hear what I said last? You didn't? So even in the United States, I know some families that, I don't want to say force, but arrange marriages for their children. And this is prohibited in Islam.
Something that I remember growing up with here in the United States, where there were specific roles for mothers and fathers. Is that the same in Islamic culture, that mothers have certain roles and fathers? And is that still in the 21st century practiced?
I would say so. And Rosa, I'm going to go on because there were other. Can I answer some other questions to do with the marriage that we talked about?
Absolutely.
Okay. Because one of the questions that was asked was about adoption. We were talking about children and adoption, and that was in that same line of questioning. Islam encourages adoption and fostering. However, they can take the child in, but they cannot give the child their last name. So it is, and when I thought about this, I thought it was so sad for the family that was adopting the child. However, what can happen is the child can take on that family's name, and this has happened, and go overseas, meet somebody, and it might be a brother or a sister from that family. So we do not give the adoptive children or the fostering children our last name. Okay. Islam encourages adoption, Islam encourages adoption in certain circumstances and places importance on the welfare of children, including their physical and emotional, intellectual and spiritual upbringing. According to the Sharia, I know this is a scary word, don't be afraid, it is not allowed to deprive a child of his or her biological name. So adoptive parents are blessed with many, many virtues. And the most beautiful virtue that they're actually blessed with is that they will have companionship with the Prophet Muhammad. Peace and blessings be upon him in paradise. So this is how highly it's recommended. So you were asking about roles. Yes. So a good parenting framework is undoubtedly essential for the healthy development of a child's mind, body, and soul. And within this framework, there exists two mutually dependent and unique roles of the mother and the father. The influence each has is bound to have on the child varies primarily on their level of involvement with the child, which in turn is determined by their respective cultures and historical epochs. For many of us, the idea that a mother alone is responsible for her children has been ingrained in our minds. While to some level it might be true, a father has just as much responsibility for a child as a mother, albeit in different ways. Being a mother is an arduous role and comes with numerous trials and sacrifices, but not without reward. In fact, God mentions in the Quran the value and honor a mother holds. The Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, was once asked by one of the companions about who he should be good to the most. And the Prophet responded with the mother 3 times before the father. But in Islam, fathers share equal responsibility for raising their children, as is evident from studying the life of our Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. A father is a defender, a teacher, a guide, a provider, and most importantly, a leader and a role model for his children. Even though mothers undoubtedly have a greater emotional and psychological connection with their children, a father is responsible for his actions towards his family, especially his wife. As children, especially sons, imitate their fathers. Mothers play an important role as the heart of the home, but this in no way lessens the equally important role the fathers play as the head of the home in nurturing, training, and loving their children. As the patriarch in the home, males have a serious responsibility to assume leadership in working with children and supporting the woman.
Thank you. That was beautiful. Nuran, are there any specific role models for Muslim mothers?
I have a few. I think the first one I would like to mention is Khadija. I'm seeing my daughter. The first wife of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. And she's my role model for a number of reasons. She was a successful businesswoman while she was a mother. Doesn't that refute all the stories we've heard about Muslim women having to stay at home? So she supported the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, from her wealth. She was the one that earned the money. She was socially conscious, and her business dealings were fair. She was honest and kind to her employees. And she defied all stereotypes by marrying the Prophet and continuing to work and be successful after their marriage. Now, the beautiful story about Khadija, radiallahu anha, is that she actually had somebody approach the Prophet for marriage. Here is a lady, she's 40 years old. The Prophet was working for her. He is 25 at the time. She sends somebody to approach him to ask if he is interested in marrying her. She was the first person to embrace Islam, the first woman, and she's also known by Muslims as the mother of the believers. I think when we hear about Muslim women being oppressed, this is my first role model, that she's the first person that comes to me.
What's her name again?
Khadija. Yes. Sorry? Yeah, Khadijah. And then the third wife of the Prophet, Aisha, is also one of my role models. She was a young girl. I do want to mention this because I know that we hear how Muslim men have more than one wife, and the Prophet did have more than one wife. However, in the time that he was married to Khadija for 25 years, There were no other wives at this time. After her passing, he did marry other women. And I have to, when I talked about more than one wife, I was watching something on Facebook the other day where Cat Stevens, Yusuf Islam, was asked about how could he belong to a religion that the men are allowed to have 4 wives. And what he said was so interesting. He said that when he was famous, he was allowed to be intimate with so many women that he might have children all over the world that he doesn't even know, and everybody praised him and thought this was a wonderful thing. And now that he is in a religion where men are allowed to have 4 wives, and if anybody wants to ask me a question about that, I'm not going to go into that right now, but they showed disgust to him. He only wanted 1 wife, he's only been married to 1 wife, and so I love Yusuf Islam anyhow, but more so since he made that statement. So Aisha, the 3rd wife of the Prophet, was a scholar and a teacher to many of the Prophet's companions. She, and her contribution to Islamic scholarship cannot be overstated. She contributed to the spread of Muhammad's message and served the Muslim community for 44 years after his death. She narrated 2,210 ahadith. Now, Muslims have 2 sources, and I know Abdurrahman had mentioned this prior when he spoke here. We have the Quran as our main source, and then we have the ahadith, or the Sunnah, as our secondary source, which is the traditions and the sayings of the Prophet. So she, of course, lived with him. She was able to narrate these traditions, 2,210. That's amazing to me. Not just unrelated to the Prophet Muhammad's private life, but also on topics such as inheritance, pilgrimage, and eschatology. Let me ask you folks this. If these 2 women in the time of the Prophet made such a difference, how can people possibly think that Muslim women are oppressed? Culturally, they have been, and we've seen in different countries how this has come about. But as far as the Quran and the Sunnah or the Hadith, this is not so. When we look back at Islamic history, we truly learn that Islam is not oppressive. And I also want to mention the Eve, the wife of Adam. This is when we talk about our stories of conversion or reversion to Islam. Besides me reading the biography of our holy prophet that made such an impact on my life, when I read that Eve was not responsible for the original sin, I felt liberated. So this was a turning point for me.
It's so interesting because everything that you say is true, so different than what we hear in the media about what goes on, how women can't be educated and shouldn't be educated. So that is interesting that your role models were so highly educated and so successful on their own. You pretty much answered my next question about Muslim women being oppressed by the religion. Now, I think we talked at other times when the Imam was here that it's the culture that's more oppressive than the religion. But can you just talk a little more about that? Is there oppression of women in the religion?
There is not oppression of religion, of women in the religion. Women are highly, highly revered, and their status is highly elevated. according to the Quran and the Sunnah. And because I mentioned Eve, not that I want to take the devotion away from any other faith. As a Christian or as a Catholic, we learned that, Eve tempted Adam. She wanted him to eat from the tree. In Islam, it is not that way. Adam ate from the tree, Eve ate from the tree. It was a tree that was forbidden. They both repented and amended. So this is not on Eve at all. And because we believe that Adam was thrown out of paradise, because of Eve. This is not so.
Do you have any, reverence in your religion for Mary, the mother of Jesus?
So Mary in our faith, is known as one of the perfect women. There are 4 women that are mentioned, and Mary is one of them. Fatima, the daughter of the prophet, is one of them. Asiya, the wife of Pharaoh, is also one of them, and then Khadija is one of them. So Mary's status in Islam is, I read a hadith that said that actually Mary is elevated above all women, that she gave birth to Jesus Christ, being a virgin, and we should emulate her, that her reverence was beyond what we could imagine.
I love that. I love that the way you speak is universal.
Yes.
Because all the religions kind of are under that umbrella, which is wonderful.
Yes.
One last question for me. Why do the Muslim women wear the hijab? Why do they dress as you dress so beautifully?
Okay. So in the Quran, in chapter 24:31, it's translated to mean that the woman should draw the veil across her bosom. In the time of the Prophet, what happened was women were they had headscarves, but they were tying it at the back and exposing like I am right now, exposing their bosom. And so a revelation came to say that they should draw the veils across their bosom. Now, wearing the hijab has not been easy. Not been easy, and I think probably in South Africa, the South African Muslims might say the same thing. I have had many, many struggles. I think a number of you know that I play pickleball, and coming to a place for the first time, even New Smyrna at Live Oak. I remember arriving, we moved in on the Monday, and Abdurrahman said, get out there and play on Tuesday. So off I went to the courts, and when I arrived there, people looked at me like I was an alien. It is so painful that after so many years that people see women covered, that they still mistreat them. Nobody would play with me. I sat for the first round that people went out, and then I said, you know what? I want to play too. So one of the ladies said, so well, how do you play? And what kind of level are you? And I said, well, can I show you? And I knew exactly why I was being treated that way, because I've seen new people come to the courts, and I've never seen them treated like I was treated that day. So I had to show them that I could play. And this has happened time and time again to me. So on that note, I do want to say that I've also experienced the opposite. 2020, when the elections were going on, of course, Muslim women struggled more than ever. And I would have people come up to me in the grocery store and say to me, I love your headscarf. It's so beautiful. So I don't want to paint a picture that it's just been all bad. I've had some good experiences, but for the most part, it's been rough. God commanded us to wear the hijab. I was reading something the other day, a Pew Research, that they said that 36% of women wear the hijab. And I understand why. I really do. It's what God commanded. My husband did not tell me to wear the hijab, which so many people have asked me. I could come out and said. One of the guys at the court one day, an elderly man, said to me, you've got to take that thing off your head. You're in America now. You don't have to listen to your husband while you're here. And I was like, excuse me? But this is what people think, that we are oppressed, that our husbands make us wear the hijab. I love wearing it. It has defined who I am. However, it has been a tough road. Yeah, so we know that Mary, the mother of Jesus, wore the scarf. We know that nuns, very few nuns today, we wouldn't know that they were nuns because of the way they dress today. But the hijab is commanded by God.
Well, thank you. That's the end of my questions. We do have a little more time. Would you like questions from the congregation?
Yes, I would love questions from you guys.
If you'll raise your hand, I can bring the microphone.
I was curious if you believe that the requirement for a headscarf for women, when we see so many younger Muslim women now no longer wearing it, do you think that sometimes it was relevant in the past, but no longer relevant in the present?
You know, I feel, or I think, that if God commanded it, if the revelation came to the Prophet Muhammad 1435 years ago, and it has not changed, in that there are some things that have changed in Islam. Scholars would get together and change it. This has not been changed, so therefore I follow the command of God, and I think it's relevant to today for a number of reasons. I think, for me, when I worked in the school, when I would walk into the lounge, people would say, oh, well, we better clean it up now. They were cussing and carrying on, and of course, in front of me, they thought they couldn't do that. That's between them and God. They could do whatever they wanted to do. But I feel, for me, the spiritual side of it is that it makes me feel closer to God. And it helps me not only define myself, but define my relationship with God. So if it was relative then, for me, it's relative today, because I put my hijab on at 1991. And the birth of my third daughter. And for me, it really has a special place. The relativity has not changed now. Yes. Yes, sweetie. Yes.
I just, first of all, thank you very much. To me, your wearing of the hijab is just like a Christian wearing a cross. It's a sign of your faith, belief, and nobody should question that. Thank you.
Now, do you wear this all the time at home, when you cook, when you clean?
No, ma'am.
It would be very difficult, wouldn't it?
No, so I wear it when say you came to visit me
Yes.
and you just were coming over for tea and you were on your own, I would not have to wear the hijab. However, if you came with your spouse, I would have to wear it because there are some conditions in the Quran. There are, I believe, 13 people that I have to wear it in front of. Now, don't quote me on that number, but my brothers, my father-in-law. So I wear it pretty much when I go out. And the reason being, and this sounds so strange, because I have a spouse. If something happened to him, and say Ken wasn't married, and I wasn't wearing the hijab in front of Ken, this, Abdurrahman's looking at me like, what? Where are you going with this? So I have to wear it in front of men that I can possibly marry.
Okay, it's sort of a decency issue.
It's a modesty. You know,
Okay.
Islam is all about modesty. I do want to say this though. Islam is it's not only modesty for women, it's modesty for men as well. It's a state. And this state is the state that, you know,
But as long as you're home and in the privacy of your home, it is not an issue.
no, I can fluff my hair up,
Okay, yes. You
be
got
as
it.
cute as I can be.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
I wanted to ask you, women are so objectified today. Do you feel the hijab objectifies you or doesn't objectify you? Does it liberate you?
Definitely liberates me, definitely does not objectify me. And I think, you know, we're in a society that is so sexualized today that I would imagine, and I should go out there and do a survey, I don't want to be judged by the way I look or what I wear. I want to be judged for me, and I feel like the veil actually is a protector.
Hi, Nuran. My question is, as a mother of Muslim children, what was it like for you when they were in school? And how was that a challenge, I would think?
Can I ask, Lucia, would you like to say something, and then I'll say, is it okay if my daughter says, because she gets, okay, and then I'll.
Hi, everyone, again. So I'll speak on the experience of myself and the experiences of my siblings, which I'm familiar with, obviously. Personally, I'm a tough cookie. Not many kids wanted to mess with me. Unfortunately, my siblings did not have the same experience. And behind my back, I would get, just hear the most horrible things that I knew weren't true about my mother. Her husband makes her wear it. You know, she probably didn't, you know, she doesn't have much education. She's wearing it, like, just all the most horrible things you can think of. And hearing this about your mother, but knowing they're not true. And then seeing my mom's pain today is something that I was familiar with as a child. I didn't know why she would sometimes kind of cringe. Yeah, cringe. I didn't get it. But as I got older, I realized just how unnerving, uncomfortable it must be to walk into a room knowing that you're going to be judged immediately and bracing yourself for that on a constant basis. My sister had her locker broken into. My other sister had some property vandalized. My brother experienced so much just opposition to it. He played basketball, and so many of the parents would judge my mom. And I don't know if I'm answering the question to the fullest extent that you guys are looking for, but I'm just speaking as to my experiences for myself and being with my mom. Did that cover it?
So for me, I kind of knew what my children were going through. And the daughter that's a year younger than Nasiha used to sort of hide when she was at school. She was really, really afraid for the students to see me because she knew what she was going to be facing. let me say this. We moved here in 2001, right after 9/11. Hence, the pain my family went through. So we moved here in October, and taking the children to school was painful. Picking them up was painful, and my children were in constant pain.
I need to ask the context before we go into that.
Yes.
So, once again, my mother was looked at like aliens. We were looked at like terrorists. We were actually literally called terrorists. And so knowing what a heart my mother has, the compassion, the kindness, you guys, if anybody that knows my mother knows that she's the farthest thing from a terrorist. But they would make fun of my brother and say that your dad's a terrorist, he wears that outfit, your mom's a terrorist. And to hear these things about your parents from people who really, I mean, the ignorance was just so rampant that as you get older, you just start to kind of, you're like, these people, you feel sorry for them, really. I do. I actually pity people that are so deluded to the reality. But my mom is the most amazing mother, the most amazing person. And so it was very tough to see her pained and ostracized.
If I can share one thing that's so important, I think our third daughter rode the school bus, and some boys tore her hijab off of her head. She chose it in the 5th grade to wear it independently. We did not encourage it at all. As a matter of fact, I'm ashamed, but I discouraged it because I didn't want her to be picked on at school. But they threw it out the bus, and being a social worker, when I approached the Board of Education about it, they said that's just what kids do. And I said, would that be the same thing if it was a white Christian? And they just didn't say anything. They never answered my question. And that's just a drop in the bucket of things that we went through with our kids. Nasia was very nice as she is. What they actually did is they blew my daughter's locker up with an M80. And the guy stood up in the class and said, all Muslims should be killed. So I tend to take things to the heart of the matter, as you all know, and tell it like it is. My wife, may God bless her, and my daughter, they present things more beautifully and eloquently than I do. I believe in bringing the elephant to the room so that people really see what's going on with us in the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes, Liz?
You said about the one daughter that was in school or that. At what age do women generally adopt that car?
When they reach puberty.
Are you going to be able to stay for the discussion after? So we'll close off the questions for now, and then we're going to go under the tree if it's not too warm out there and have some refreshments, and we can continue with the conversation. Nuran, thank you so much.
Thank you.
This was wonderful.